6 p.m.
The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news at 6 comes to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. With the news at this time, I'm Dennis Chabrol. Good evening. First, the highlights. The Caribbean's two major mobile telecoms providers are to examine how WhatsApp and similar services can be taxed. Operation Recovery is underway to get primary school students back in the classrooms. In the regions, Surinamese soldiers have been sent to senior citizens' home where workers have gone on strike. And 3 persons have been shot dead in Trinidad. The details of these and other stories in a moment.
Planning to watch TV or listen to the radio or just enjoy a lime? Then grab a bucket of KFC finger-licking good chicken and enjoy the exciting taste of KFC and their branches on Vicinjan Road, Mandela Avenue, Regent Street, Ink Street, Stabrook Square, Breeden Hoop, Parika, Movie Town are now at the Amazonia Mall at Providence. Now open from 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. You'll always be enjoying the great taste of KFC.
It's finger-licking good.
And now the news in detail. The Caribbean Community, CARICOM, and the region's 2 major mobile phone companies have agreed to examine taxing over-the-top OTT services like WhatsApp and similar services. Digicel says it agreed with Cable and Wireless and the CARICOM to share professional studies concerning the taxation of OTTs. They also agreed to discuss the potential regulatory framework for CARICOM telecom service providers. Other OTT services include Telegram, Skype, Signal, and Teams. These services are used free of cost as part of subscribers' data plans, something telecommunication companies say have been robbing them of much-needed revenue. The Guyana government and the People's National Congress Reform, PNCR, on Thursday united in condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In condemning the violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and its territorial integrity by Russia, the Guyana government is calling for the immediate cessation of military action. The Irfan Ali-led administration says it is consulting with its international partners. And the PNCR, the major party in the opposition coalition, a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, also called for the withdrawal of troops. The PNCR says Russia's invasion of Ukraine amounts to a violation of its territorial integrity and the principle of the sanctity of contracts and that of internationally recognized borders. Guyana has unresolved border claims with neighboring Venezuela and Suriname. The PNCR notes the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Even at this juncture, there is room for diplomatic efforts by powerful nations and multilateral organizations to end the conflict. With oil prices soaring above $100 per barrel for the first time in 7 years, the PNCR noted that Guyana could not afford to ignore that conflict in Europe. This is because it has grave implications for the peaceful development and for the geopolitics of Europe, the rest of the world, more particularly, and negative consequences for the world economy. The Ministry of Education says it has launched Operation Recovery with the 11 education districts to get back students into the classroom now that the COVID pandemic appears to be waning. The Education Ministry says the aim is to find primary school students who have been continuously absent from school since school restarted. Operation Recovery, according to the Education Ministry, is also targeting those who have missed the recent National Grade 6 Assessment mock exam. Latest official figures show that 1,300 Grade 6 children were absent from the Grade 6 mock exam. This move will see education officers from the Central Ministry and within the education districts, along with regional officials and community activists, fanning out into communities to locate the pupils. The exercise aims to ascertain the location of the students and the reasons behind their absenteeism so that the Ministry of Education can assist these students to return to school. The scientific data gathered from countries around the world in numerous studies by varying organizations continue to show that the long school closures resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic will lead to an increased rate of school dropouts and a tremendous learning loss unless countries take urgent practical measures to mitigate against this. The number of persons in a COVID-19 intensive care unit has dropped to 7. Overall, the Health Ministry says there are 52 persons in hospital. The statistics also show that the number of persons who have been ordered to isolate themselves at home has dropped to less than 1,000. In fact, there are now 712 persons who have been asked to stay at home. 6 others have been quarantined to see if they develop symptoms of the viral disease. Based on the latest tests within the past 24 hours, the Ministry of Health says there are 19 new cases. Since the first case was recorded here in March 2020, 62,798 cases have been recorded and 60,811 have recovered. An 18-year-old man died on Thursday after the car he was driving slammed into the Demerara Distillers Limited DDL fence at Diamond, East Bank, Demerara. Dead is Prakash Salvador of 1316 Section C, Block Y, Golden Grove, East Bank, Demerara. Police say the incident occurred at about 8:15 a.m. Police say the car was being driven at a fast rate of speed when Salvador lost control of the vehicle and it struck the fence. Salvador was removed from the wreck in an unconscious condition and taken to the Diamond Diagnostic Center, where he died while receiving medical attention. Turning to news now from the region. Surinamese soldiers have been deployed to a senior citizens' home where workers have gone on strike. Star News reports that the Ministry of Defense has sent military personnel to support a senior citizens' home named Huizi Ashiana. The soldiers have been deployed to assist the home in the kitchen, medical, and security areas. Defense Minister Krishna Mithora says the vulnerable group of senior citizens cannot be abandoned. She hopes that the industrial unrest at the senior citizens' home will end soon and the soldiers will be withdrawn. The retirement home offers housing, nursing, and care to senior citizens from 60 years of age and older who can no longer function independently due to social, medical, or nursing reasons and who do not have the opportunity to do so elsewhere. In Trinidad, 2 bandits and a woman were shot dead this morning after the criminals invaded a home. More from TTT News Online.
3 persons are dead following a home invasion in West Moorings. TTT News understands that sometime after 8:30, 2 intruders attempted to break into a house located at Cherry Crescent. Upon entry, a woman was shot and killed by one of the assailants. A relative who possesses a licensed firearm confronted the intruders and a shootout ensued. During the shootout, the 2 intruders were killed and a woman who lived at the home. The woman was taken to the St. James Medical Center but succumbed to injuries. Up until news time, police are said to be on the scene conducting inquiries.
That report from TTT News Online. In Antigua, there has been a spate of break-and-enter larceny at schools. Here's the latest from ABS Radio.
The COVID-19 pandemic has caused much disruption to schools over the past few years. But now, education officials say recent school break-ins and vandalism are compounding learning challenges. The Clay Hall Secondary School is one of the institutions the perpetrators have targeted in the string of break-ins, as portrait Principal Ashwood Azil, who tells me it has impacted the school in more ways than one.
Over the last 3.5 weeks, we've experienced 3 break-ins. 3 break-ins which really have resulted in tremendous loss to the school, both in terms of material resources, in terms of lost learning time and so forth.
He says the vandals have taken computers, projectors and other vital teaching tools. Azil represented principals at a stakeholder meeting this week discussing ways to address the issue. He says Otter's Comprehensive School has also come under attack from vandals.
Where you had human excrement being left, in classrooms and so forth. That certainly is barbaric and by any measure reeks of just pure callous disregard for the value of education.
He says these incidents further retard learning for students already faced with challenges from the pandemic.
That every time a school has to stop for a half a day, to clean, sanitize, restore their classrooms to an operational state, restore their staff rooms and administrative areas to an operational state. Those are hours that we're taking away from students learning.
This week's meeting included Education Ministry officials, teacher union members, and representatives from Public Works, the division which handles school security.
We are looking for some concrete plans, and they have committed to ensuring that there is some concrete plans in place that can be communicated to us by the end of this week.
Public Works Head of Security Robert Martin says they are considering several interventions, including electronic monitoring and improved lighting at school plants. Jamie J. O'Shea, ABS News.
And now for the latest international news, we go to the BBC World Service.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. The Russian and Ukrainian armies are fighting fierce battles in several places close to Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, as Moscow's multi-pronged invasion progresses. Ukrainian forces have launched a counterattack against Russian airborne troops who took control of Hostomel airfield, just 15 kilometres from the centre of Kyiv. More details from our correspondent Paul Adams in the capital.
We know that Russian paratroopers are ensconced at an airbase, an airport, and have been there since before light this morning. And they are well established. They've been seen by other journalists. There has been, I think, at one point during the day, an attempt by the Ukrainians to throw them out of that location, but I don't think that has succeeded. And the question is what they're there for. Are they there waiting for the arrival of Russian armour, which is coming down from the north, or possibly as a kind of springboard for operations in the capital?
The Ukrainian military says Russia's strategy is to block off Kyiv while creating a land corridor along the south coast to the annexed Crimea Peninsula and the Transdniestria region of Moldova. Reports suggest Russian forces have made rapid progress south from Belarus. Ukrainian citizens have been leaving their homes seeking safety in other parts of the country and in neighbouring nations. The United Nations has allocated $20 million to fund their urgent humanitarian needs. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, estimated that more than 100,000 people were already on the move, with a few thousand crossing into Moldova and Romania. Mr. Grandi said his agency was on standby to help displaced people outside and inside the country.
We are in Ukraine, we have not left, and we are ready to step up and provide help. We have stockpiles, cash and other means to help the population. It is very difficult to do it today because there's military action everywhere around the country, but provided we have access and security, we're ready to move.
President Biden has declared further sanctions on Russia, which he said went further than anything that had ever been done and would impose severe costs. Barbara Pletusher is in Washington.
President Biden announced a series of financial penalties that would cut off Russia's largest banks and companies from Western financial markets. He said the U.S. would freeze trillions of dollars in Russian assets and restrict technology exports to the country. But he stopped short of sanctioning Mr. Putin directly and did not target Russia's energy sector. He said the sanctions were designed to try and limit the impact on global oil and natural gas markets. Mr. Biden said the effect of these harsh measures would play out over the medium to long term. And if the West showed resolve, he said, they would so weaken Russia, Mr. Putin would be forced to either respond to the pressure or become a second-rate power.
BBC News. European Union leaders meeting in Brussels have agreed a significantly tougher package of sanctions targeting Russia's financial, energy and transport sectors in response to its invasion of Ukraine. In a statement, they said these would have severe consequences for Russia. The measures include export controls and sanctions on Russian individuals linked to the war and the Kremlin. The EU leaders said, in addition, new sanctions would be prepared against Belarus. A human rights monitoring group in Russia says that more than 1,500 anti-war protesters have been arrested at rallies in cities across the country. But very few placards were on display criticising the government for its actions. Sergei Guryashka from the BBC's Russian service is in Moscow.
This evening, the hundreds of people gathered just hundreds of meters away from Kremlin, and police was acting especially harsh today. In fact, there are lots of detentions in Moscow. There were opposition rallies, anti-war opposition rallies in many Russian cities, and people are still walking around on the streets and walking around on the streets of the second biggest city in Russia, St. Petersburg, where they are shouting against the war and urging Putin to stop his aggression against Ukraine.
Stock markets around the world have fallen sharply following the Russian invasion, with the Dow Jones in New York down around 2% a short time ago. The price of natural gas in Europe has shot up by more than a third. Europe is dependent on Russia for both oil and gas. The head of the UN World Food Programme has warned that the conflict in Ukraine will have a dramatic impact on the organisation's ability to aid millions of people in Yemen. David Beasley said it would cause food, fuel and shipping costs to skyrocket, creating an absolute catastrophe in Yemen. That's the latest. BBC News.
And that's the news to the moment.
With immediate effect, KFC's Vlissingen Road drive-thru will be open up to 1 a.m. all week. The Movie Town drive-thru will be open up to 1 a.m. on weekends and midnight Monday to Thursday. The Mandela Avenue drive-thru will be open until 1 a.m. on weekends and 11 p.m. Monday to Thursday. New opening times for KFC's drive-thrus at Vlissingen Road, Movie Town and Mandela Avenue.
And now, to end the news, a recap of the highlights. The Caribbean's two major mobile telecoms providers are to examine how WhatsApp and similar services can be taxed. Operation Recovery is underway to get primary school students back in the classrooms. In the region, Surinamese soldiers have been sent to a senior citizens' home where workers have gone on strike. And the 3 persons have been shot dead in Trinidad. The news came to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken KFC.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.
You're still listening to News Talk Radio Guyana 103.